couple dozen students gathered right here in front of the university tower steps, and then they proceeded to march around the university campus, chanting Daunte Wright's name. One of the records I've heard so far from people here in Williamson County is going on 30 hours without power. You can still see that active police presence here right now. Police are still working the scene, collecting evidence and anything they can about this shooting. Look at how much this snow has hardened just after it fell a couple hours ago. Now there's a network of friends and neighbors who are placing ribbons like these all over town. More than 60% of Texas's ICU beds are being used to treat COVID-19 patients.
¿Qué es tu respuesta de lo que decidió la universidad en hacer mandatorio las vacunas de COVID-19?
Pues yo estoy muy contenta.
A Good Samaritan was walking along this block on Rotherham Drive when she heard a small child crying from the community mailboxes. And this is the same thing that we're seeing even on trees here in downtown Fredericksburg. You can see it kind of glistening. The first day of early voting for this upcoming election is April 19th and ends on April 27th. Election day is on May 1st. Reporting live in downtown Austin, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News.
It's not the same, like just going back into my own apartment.
Dirty dishes, flood damage, clothing and furniture tossed and destroyed.
Initially, I thought probably like maintenance or housekeeping went in there. And seconds later, the door opened and this stranger peeped through the door.
After 2 days out of town, David and his girlfriend returned to his West Campus apartment Monday, only to find someone inside.
We kind of immediately recognized it was a homeless man that showed up about like 2 weeks ago in front of my street.
The couple is speaking for the first time and have chosen to use different names to remain anonymous.
He came out the door and like kind of marched at us, so we like backed off. We had to like cross the street.
According to David, the suspect declared the home was his own.
I called the police, but before they showed up, the homeless man began to charge at us. I grabbed my pepper spray that I've had, so then I sprayed him, and it was at that point that he ran back into David's apartment and locked the door.
Austin police arrested 46-year-old Michael Waite for criminal trespassing.
We actually later discovered via our cleaning that he took some of David's kitchen knives and hid them around the apartment.
CBS Austin has learned Waite was released and arrested again Wednesday. The charge, criminal trespassing at a different home just a few miles north of campus.
I think that funds should be diverted and given towards mental health facilities that'll take care of people like the man who broke into David's apartment.
SafeHorn's president Joel McNews says this incident is a reminder to students to be aware of your surroundings.
Honestly, it's something I'm concerned about because more students are coming back this weekend.
In West Campus, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News. In the middle of downtown Dripping Springs.
I usually just started from noon to maybe sunset, so around 7.
Stands 20-year-old Nifa Kaniga.
Racism doesn't stop because of the heat, so.
With an invitation to ask anything.
It's uncomfortable talking about race. It's uncomfortable having to put yourself out here. But that's why I put on the sign, make yourself uncomfortable.
As national Black Lives Matter protests sparked by the death of George Floyd continue to happen in major cities, Kaniga wanted to do something different to help more people understand why.
Have something local, because this is a very white conservative town.
For Kaniga,
many people have asked me that, what's up with the All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter.
No question is too uncomfortable.
Nobody said, only Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter more than white lives. We're saying, when Black lives are taken unjustly and nothing's being done about it, it sends the sentiment that Black lives don't matter.
And he knows not everyone will hear what he has to say.
Everybody has their opinion for a reason. And I think having empathy and, just trying to understand, where are you coming from in this point of view and, hearing their point of view.
But he says he's surprised many in his community have come to ask him tough questions about race. Some joining him to keep the movement going.
It's 2020. We're supposed to have an open mind about things, we're raising a new generation. I want my kids to want to love like everybody. I don't see any reason not to.
Kaniga believes if more people are willing to listen to different ideas and vote, this national spark for change will have a lasting impact.
We have to be uncomfortable if we want change.
In Dripping Springs, Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News. Its pages depict the life of a transgender boy learning about his identity at a young age.
If this resource was around when I was a kid and I had been exposed to this, it would have been life-changing.
But the children's book, Call Me Max, hasn't been as well received by some Eanes ISD families after a teacher at Forest Trail Elementary shared the book with fourth grade students.
We had some parents then came to us and said, why was this shown? Is this in your curriculum? Where is this in your curriculum? It wasn't.
Some parents telling the district the decision to share the material was inappropriate.
It is absolutely age appropriate for children at that age to be having those discussions. It was alarming to hear the way the other adults in the community were reacting.
Eanes ISD parents like Yvonne Adams have since taken a stand in support of the book and LGBTQ families who may be feeling marginalized because of the negative reaction from parents and the district's response, which stated in part that the material was not, quote, appropriately reviewed by the district.
The teacher introduced it, and it wasn't under a locally adopted curriculum. We hadn't gotten there yet.
Superintendent Tom Leonard says the district has been working with a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant over the last 8 months to cultivate a more inclusive community at Eanes ISD. With that is a goal to establish a more inclusive and diverse curriculum. But Leonard says the district has not reached that point in the process.
We know it is critically important that we meet children's needs. But that doesn't mean, just because it's critical that we meet those needs, that we don't have another responsibility to thoughtfully review our curriculum and partner with parents. They're not mutually exclusive.
I think the argument that the school district has made and that some parents are making is a dodge.
Joe Ivester says the controversy hits close to home, as her son Jeremy discovered he was transgender while he was a student at Eanes ISD.
I think it's absolutely appropriate that kids are allowed to see, and it's not something taboo. And I think 5-year-old me could have heard that story and said, that's me.
Jeremy hopes the district sees that children discovering their own identity today need stories like Call Me Max. A community group of parents called Eanes for Equity has since created a petition calling for all children to feel safe and supported by the district.
So while this isn't part of the curriculum, it's part of what we as a district, Eanes as a district, says that they teach, which is social emotional learning and how you treat one another and how we accept one another and how every child is accepted and seen.
Gabriela Vidal, CBS Austin News.